You would think as we get started with mandatory minicamp that you would at least have some idea of where you stand with your current ball club on a contract extension, correct? Well, in JFM's case, it's not necessarily how it's happening. What's going on, Broncos country? Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. My name is Moose, and on today's episode, it's exactly what we're talking about. Is JFM any closer to getting a new deal done? The answer, probably going to disappoint the JFM fans. Now, it should be noted that today, mandatory minicamp starts. So, obviously, the media is going to be allowed to attend and report on everything that we see, and some good news surrounding JFM at mandatory minicamp, which we'll touch on here in just a second. But before we get into anything, our current June likes record looks like this. You guys have been doing an amazing job. So here's what I need you to do. Help us get even closer. We're just about halfway there. Hit that thumbs up button on today's video. It's completely free, and it helps grow the channel. Now, no communication has been reported between John Franklin Meyers and the Broncos front office. Now, is that the biggest news in the world? Is that the most deleterious thing to hear? No, because we still are in June. However, usually there is at least an understanding of negotiations. Maybe a deal hasn't been worked out yet, or they're not close to finding the right number. But to say that there's been no communications, no negotiations whatsoever, leads me to believe the Broncos are not currently interested in hearing anything about John Franklin Meyers' contract extension. In fact, one guy from the Denver Post, Mr. Troy Renck, said this: Courtland Sutton wants another big bite of the apple. All pros Nick Bonitto and Zach Allen are considered higher priorities for extensions, and it's hard to see the Broncos rewarding three players before the season starts. It's not impossible, but it kind of feels unlikely. And seeing as that JFM's lower on the totem pole, the math and the drafting of Sai'vion Jones just kind of leads everybody to believe that they're probably not going to be paying John Franklin Meyers anytime soon, if at all. Now, he is expected to show up at mandatory minicamp, and this is the last year of his contract. So, obviously, he recognizes the importance of this year. So it would be crazy. It would be crazy for JFM to not show up and to have a holdout type of, situation. But if we go back and we take a look at what Franklin Meyers did last year, these are really, really good numbers. I'm not going to deny it. These are really, really productive, solid numbers in Vance Joseph's defense. And he clearly, out of all of the last years, the last 4 seasons, this was by far his best season. So it's a what have you done for me lately league. And he definitely showed out last year. But as I mentioned previously, JFM's low on the priority list. Out of all the guys going into a contract extension year that need to get paid, he is not number 1 or even number 2 on the list. And I hate saying that because I thought he was a really great addition to this football club last year. But the pay priorities kind of look like this. Now, not in any particular order. You can, throw Zach Allen on top of Courtland Sutton or Nick Bonitto on top of Zach Allen if you want. But those 3 guys are going to get paid before JFM does. JFM is easily 4th on this priority list. Now, if we were to talk about the highest paid defensive tackles per year, I don't think he's looking for top 10 money. I really don't. And I say that because he's not a top 10 defensive tackle in the league. But I also think that his asking price is probably going to be higher than what the Broncos are willing to give him, because currently he's on a 2-year, $15 million deal, which is what, $7.5 million per year? That's his current deal that he's making right now. Does he deserve more money than that? Yeah, probably. But is he going to be worth what some of the other going rates of the defensive tackles in the NFL are going to be asking for? That remains to be seen. So the question now becomes, what is his asking price? Because the money is what everything boils down to. You know that. I know that. In every place of business, not just football or sports in general, it comes down to the money. How much are you worth and how much are they willing to pay you? It's a story as old as time. Now, before we get into what the actual asking price is, I thought it would be a good time to tell you about a discounted price on a cool Broncos hoodie that apparently people are loving right now. So all you got to do is use this link that I've put in the comments and description of today's video and start shopping with Fanatics today. It's 40% off right now. That's a great deal, but it's not just this hoodie. You can get jerseys, hats, and so much more gearing up for the 2025 NFL season. So do me a favor, go to chatsports.com/Broncos hoodie and start shopping today. Okay, so I want to take the time by saying this. This makes me, I don't want to sound like I'm not a fan of what JFM is doing, because he's really putting in the work. He lives here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and apparently has been just like plugging away, working with a personal trainer, gearing up for the season, and believes highly in himself and his ability to produce numbers on the field. But if we take a look back at what the highest paid defensive tackles are, I mentioned he's not going to get top 10 money. But you can't just look at the top 10 and say, well, he's not going to get that. You have to talk about what he could get. So in my opinion, what is a good pay comp right now? And I say this because it's not going to be exact, and they're not the exact same player. In fact, the player that I'm going to give you is slightly better than JFM, but they're close enough to the point where you could make the argument that it's somewhere in the ballpark. I want to make that clear. I don't think JFM is going to get Leonard Williams type money. But I went back and did the homework, and I looked at their last couple of seasons. Leonard Williams' 2024 season was by far the best of his career. And it was better than what JFM did in 2024 as well. If you just take a look at the side-by-side comparison, Leonard Williams beat him in everything. But if you go back and look at 2023, 2022, 2021, they're very, very similar numbers. Leonard Williams is a slightly better player than JFM. But it is probably the most comparable in terms of what JFM could potentially get. Now, what is Leonard Williams currently making? He's on a 3-year, $64.5 million deal, which is $21.5 million per year. So that now leads me to ask the question, is JFM going to ask for $20 million a year? Now, is that a little bit high? Yeah, it is. And would I have it somewhere closer to about $15 million per year? Yeah, probably. But this is all, up in the air right now. He's been very vocal, JFM has, about wanting a new contract. And it's clear the Broncos have said, we're not interested in talking about that right now, which they have every right to do, and JFM has every right to ask for a new contract extension. This happens with players all over the NFL all the time. And Mr. Producer Alper, if you could throw up the priority list one more time of pay priorities for the Broncos here in just a second. The reason I say this happens all the time is because you can't feed everybody, right? Not everybody gets a seat at the table. You're not going to be able to keep every single player that currently wants to get paid. So I want you to just go through this and look at all these 4 players that are entering into contract years for 2026 and ask yourself, out of all 4 of these players, which one would you most likely be okay with parting ways with? If Nick Bonitto has another year like he did last year, same with Zach Allen, we're already saying that Courtland Sutton's going to get paid. It's just a matter of when and how much. The guy at the end of the table is JFM. And I hate saying that because I like him. I think he's a great player. He's a good addition to this defensive unit. Vance Joseph likes him. The players like him. He's good in the locker room. The truth is that the ball club's not going to be able to pay you everything that you're looking for. Salary caps do go up, but eventually you start looking at it when you become a free agent, and you're going to go where the money's at. That's just the truth. All right, so I said all of that to ask you one particular question. Would you pay JFM $20 million a year? I'm saying no, and I say that, I don't take any pride in saying that a guy shouldn't be trying to get as much money as he should. I just don't think he's worth that high. Now, is he worth more than $7.5 million? Obviously. But where does that is it between 7.5 and 20? Most likely. That's going to do it for us on today's episode. Remember, I am going live today at 4 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Mountain Time. So See you there. We're going to talk a little bit more about some contract stuff with another player and some mandatory minicamp takeaways. Until next time, my name is Moose. Be cool.